Great. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Am I audible to everyone? Great. At the last travel-related discussion which I attended, there was something which was shared by one of the speakers, which was all about, you should allow early check-ins for groups. I know all that sounds, very good on paper, but the challenges which hoteliers like Vikram and Nikita face is, what is it that you do if there are 25 corporates and 25 wedding guests? You obviously will not have 50 rooms available on peak dates. So whom do you give it to? These are some of the questions which I would actually love it if, these are the secrets as we call it, can be unraveled in a discussion like this. Or you have 20 international guests at your hotel and the rest is all occupied by wedding guests. Will you permit firecrackers if they are in rooms where it is audible? If you are in a hotel where outside catering is not permitted, to what extent will you permit it? I do hope during the course of this discussion, we are able to, I do understand that the situation is very different, month by month. And the situation is very different month by month. And weddings is a space which is very talked about, but least documented. It's something we're learning about every day. But I do hope in this course of discussion, we are able to throw a little light on what is changing and what to expect in 2020. I'd like to ask my first question to Vikram. We do know that today a lot of those who are opting to have a wedding in their hometown are opting for a destination wedding style wedding, because in a certain strata, you cannot be having a wedding, which is typically hometown, where guests are invited, every day for a function, in different venues of the hotel. It's about how to give them the destination wedding style experience. So just tell us how it's changing in Delhi.
So, honestly, you said the right words to start with, that a lot of trends are changing really at this point of time with regards to destination weddings versus a similar concept, but in the city of domicile. And that has to do with the current lifestyle also, to be honest with you. Gone are the days when you could have your, minute detailing into catering and then look at rooms or guest houses and so on and so forth. People have realized that hotels are now catering to a certain set of expertise, whether it's rooms, whether it's catering, whether it's decor, and I think that takes a lot of burden off the hosts in terms of planning the entire wedding. So with that thought process, I think people who are living, for example, in Delhi and would like to actually have a destination wedding and enjoy it, as a matter of fact, because they also are spending that money and they want to be a part of the celebration.
As the millennials just put it, you cannot have the experiences, you have to drive 2 hours. The whole fun of getting ready and driving for 2 hours is gone.
Absolutely. So, all of that put together, people have started realizing that if I'm going to spend that kind of money, I also want to enjoy the wedding. I also want to be a part of the celebration, as against just preparing for the celebration. And I think that's where this whole thought process evolved. And yes, trends have really changed in the last few years, where people are looking at destination models of weddings, but in the city of domicile. And
that's great news for the city hotels also.
Absolutely.
That it is not just the MICE segment which is taking up the rooms, but also the wedding segment.
No, absolutely. And I think MICE and wedding go hand in hand today as far as numbers are concerned, as far as number of rooms are concerned, and driving occupancies in hotels are concerned. And if you look at the new trend within the food and beverage business, weddings for the banqueting section takes over almost 50% upwards in terms of the revenue earned. So it's a very, very important segment to really cater to today and develop that expertise really.
Nikita, we all of course know that Delhi is a great market, but I know the wedding planners get very excited when you tell them about cities like Raipur, Indore, because they feel that they are the clients who are really spending a lot on weddings, and the Bombay and Delhi clients are getting more and more practical. And of course, there's an order when it comes to Sindhi, Sindhis who are in Hong Kong and Dubai. Then there's, of course, the Marwadis of Calcutta who are much sought after. But as the Marriott group, tell us which are the cities, especially tier 2 towns, which are very big spenders when it comes to weddings, whether it is in India or abroad.
Absolutely. So, big part of our growth strategy is tier 2 towns, right? And We have a great opportunity to enter these cities and really show them what we do in terms of service, food and beverage offerings, in terms of what we do in decor. And our whole philosophy is being extremely flexible and bringing in this expertise. At Marriott, we're key. Localization is really what makes the difference. And with that mindset, we launched our weddings campaign, Shaadi by Marriott. And really with Shaadi by Marriott, we went out there and really positioned our hotels as wedding destinations. Tier 2 cities that I can mention are Lucknow, Indore, Kochi, Raipur, Mahabalipuram. We've had a fantastic run. We have 2 fabulous hotels there, the Sheraton Grand Chennai and the Four Points.
I was there last month.
Yeah, having a great run. And if I may add, the JW Marriott Jaipur, a fantastic example again of what a product can do to create that kind of wedding destination. So really, we feel very optimistic. We are committed to the tier 2 markets that we operate in, and are committed in putting a lot of resources in there. Today we have a leverage of having a lot of expertise with our size and scale in India, and really taking that kind of talent and putting it out there and making sure it's available pan-India.
So the strategy when it comes to Shaadi by Marriott is not only to give a wow experience to those, say, in Lucknow, but it also becomes a platform or a kind of a strategy to get them interested in your international Marriott locations, whether it's Courtyard, Rayong, or whether it's Hua Hin in Sheraton Hua Hin, among others.
Yeah, so it's like an end-to-end solution, right? That's what we project Shaadi by Marriott. And today everything's online to offline. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're here. This is what we do. We understand that the wedding business in India is all about heart. It's all about lifelong memories. And we're again committed to kind of weaving in that kind of bespoke experience for our guests, irrespective of which part of the country they're at. Yeah.
Tejveen, Nikita just spoke about Mahabs, which has become a trending destination. And when I first heard about the Intercontinental opening there, and the GM was very clear that he says, I'm not looking at those who are in Chennai who will come there for a wedding. I'm really looking at those who are living in Delhi, Ludhiana, who will come there. And I think not only Intercontinental, but Radisson, Sheraton, all of them are doing very well today. But besides Mahabalipuram, which are the other hotspots in India which your clients are inquiring about in India?
Honestly, now in India, even like Jim Corbett, Missouri JW Marriott, which has really taken up because of the room occupancy, the number of games.
Thank you, Tejveen.
And also, like in terms of, we have few auspicious time during the summer, and Missouri really takes, you need an indoor space, you need everything. JW Marriott was doing very well. Then we had, which is right at the outskirts of Delhi, was ITC Bharat Grand, because it's so royal, it's so like it has its own feel and vibe to it that people, like when they want a palace and they cannot go to Jaipur or Udaipur, ITC Bharat, and of course Taj Faluknama, Hyderabad.
But each property comes with its own, like ITC Grand Bharat, the location is amazing, you're just 1 hour from Delhi. But of course, I think Deepak is here, right? I think the number of rooms are probably 100. So everything, one might think that the options are many, but when you end up talking to wedding planners and clients, when something is an amazing location, the rooms are less. Or when the rooms are there, the weather doesn't work, right?
Yeah, so the weather doesn't work, or sometimes the catch situation is sometimes you have like maybe you need 150 rooms and a property has 225, so you're in the mix because they want to take a buyout. Right, because for a wedding, if you don't take a buyout, God bless the rest of them. But, that's where a situation becomes very tricky, and we do look for, like, if it's an ITC Grand property, a spillover somewhere happens, but all the functions happening at ITC, or whether it was Taj Faluknama, Taj Krishna, though it's 45 minutes of a distance, but the whole royalty in that palace doing a function there, which can, of course, accommodate more than 500, 700 people, but yeah, the room occupancy being lesser. So all these places have really also taken over it. Apart from the weddings, I would say, when they have a lot of number, for the engagements, like, a smaller function where they want to do it, but they want to make it a royal thing. So I guess the properties in India are doing really well, even despite the room restrictions with everybody.
It's interesting because a couple of years back, nobody was thinking of Hyderabad, but we know that after, Falaknuma did one of their most high-profile weddings.
Right.
It's been great. Even Mahabs, and I think this year has really been also about Doha. Doha has done very well in the Middle East. While it all started off with Oman and then Ras Al Khaimah and Abu Dhabi,
Right.
Doha has done very well in 2019. So there are a lot of surprises also in this thing, and what seems very difficult to achieve, almost becomes trending. You know, Anand, we've spoken about ITC, we've spoken about Intercontinental, Marriott, among other hotels, which are all wooing the wedding segment. But I'm very curious to know also about banquet halls, which is where traditionally weddings have taken place. And talking about scale, there was a time maybe 20 years back, and I'm just throwing a number here, maybe 50% of middle-class Indians got married in a badminton court, which was converted. I think all gymkhanas, clubs, all had, their largest banquet area was typically, the closed area was, at least in Bombay I'm talking about, because unlike Delhi and other places, we don't have beautiful grounds. Badminton halls is where weddings would happen. But of course, we've come a long way since then, and we do know that in Delhi and other places, there are some dynamic entrepreneurs, builders, among others, who have invested in banquet halls. Tell us a little about what is happening in that space.
Yeah, I think if you take a look at what's happened specifically over the last 10 years, a lot of the people you mentioned, they come from a builder or a real estate sort of background. They've become a lot more hospitable, for the lack of a better word. They are able to command prices which are, say, starting upwards of about 1,500-1,700 rupees a plate, going up to about 2,500-3,000 also in a lot of opulent, well-decorated banquet halls in Delhi. So if you take a look at those price points and compare that to a typical five-star hotel like the erstwhile, biggies like the Tajes of the world would also command similar price points starting off, starting at 2,500-3,000. So the lines are blurring. At the end of the day, the clients do want a brand. It is a lot more easier, I'd say, for a hotel chain and for a five-star to command that brand. And they've always backed it up with service. But as banquet halls are becoming a lot quicker in terms of, say, probably responding to queries, they roll out a little bit more of the red carpet, given a lot more freebies, which people would have otherwise felt that, will a five-star hotel be a little too expensive? Will there be restrictions, typically in terms of timings and stuff? So that's where the lines are probably blurring, and they're adopting a lot more to technology and, looking at online platforms in terms of getting their business as well. So yeah, it's quite an interesting time in terms of both of these kind of coexisting.
And are many, like in Bangalore, I do know of some of these, I won't call them banquet halls, but resort styles, which are now realizing that it's not enough to have 2 rooms as changing rooms for the bride and groom.
Yeah.
The money is really, they're learning from the hotels, the money is in selling rooms, right? So they are moving on, like typically, there was a Kalyana Mandapam in, say, South India, where only the core family would check in, and there would be maximum 10 rooms.
Yeah.
But now I'm told a lot of these builders are at least putting up 25 rooms, because they realize that that's where the money also is. It's not just in the food.
Yeah.
So is that happening in Delhi also, or is the Delhi audience a little more still inclined towards those Chhatarpur farmhouses or the brands where obviously the Taj and the Marriotts have it easy?
Yeah. It is very much happening in Delhi as well. A lot of the really popular banquet halls have between 10 to about as high as a 25-30 room inventory, which is primarily focused towards selling it for families who are doing a social function over there. The thing about Chhatarpur banquets is that even if they don't have beyond the 2 rooms for the couple, there is now a decent amount of, I would say, mid-range in terms of budget inventory available off chains, also fairly accessible. It's not a time where there were just about 4-5 top 5-star hotels in the city and nothing else, right? There are a lot of budget brands as well, where if the hotel is about a couple of kilometers away, they don't really shy away from the guests being put up over there. So that's also a big advantage. I think that the struggle for a banquet hall owner is then, it's not just about putting the hotel room inventory out there. It's an investment at the end of the day, which is money which a lot of people can put, but it's about backing it up with consistent service,
which
day
the
in and day
hotels
out.
are, which people are, just as what that hotel experience, which
It's tough.
Yeah, it is that is the trick part.
Absolutely.
Vikram is
Very
smiling.
correct. So, there are 2 parts of the pie, really, honestly. So, there's one set of business that works for hotels, because what hotels have to offer is very different than what a banquet hall or a standalone would be able to offer. Let me give you a case in example for the Taj. For example, we were having this conversation before we came up in terms of caterers and so on and so forth. And I said, you know, today the expertise that Taj brings on a table, right from a Falaknuma down south to a Rambagh in Jaipur or an Umaid Bhavan in Jodhpur, the expertise that come onto the table when we curate events like this is very different from what can be offered in a standalone setup. So I think customers do identify what they want at one point of
time. But the customers, the more you offer, the more personalized they want it to be. I keep telling wedding planners that the worst news for you is that families want you to be as a part of the family, right?
True.
That during that 6 months, which means it is the business which may seem very attractive on the outside, but it is not scalable.
No, absolutely.
The moment a family expects you to be with them, if you're a wedding planner, to be with them 24/7, 7 days a week, which means you can't do any other business. So which means we do know some of the most high-profile wedding planners are not able to do more than 2 weddings in one season. And the more personalized it becomes, the more difficult it is. But talking about this whole thing, are auspicious dates, how relevant are they still for the metro audience? I mean, do your clients still look for the auspicious dates when?
Yes, absolutely. So yet again, auspicious dates play a very, very important role. I mean, there was one time when we had a handful of auspicious dates in a year to now going into first preference, second preference and third preference. It's all commoditized really in terms of that part of the business as well. But to take on to your point over there, you see, weddings do demand a lot of personalization in it. It's not a transactional event. You can't look at it as a transactional activity to say that this is something that I need to do, because that's not going to work. And that's where we as a chain have evolved to a great length to say that today when somebody walks into the doors of the Taj, he's obviously walking in with a certain expectation that he knows that the Taj will bring on the table with regards to what they want really. And we don't look at it as just another event, because for us, while you may be doing it day in and day out, it's very special for that person. And we need to understand that and make that connect. And that's how it's just growing by the day.
Let me ask you a question, Vikram. You just have around 25 rooms available at say 11 a.m. and you have a corporate group who's been doing business with you for 15 years and you have a wedding group. Whom will you give the rooms to first?
I'm going to first ask that question to my salesperson, that how did he do the contracting, to be honest. But on a lighter note, yeah, I think one has to draw a balance on that front. That's what operations are all about, to be able to draw that balance. That's where the team comes together.
I think the most successful hotels also know what is Instagrammable. So there you have the answer. The guests who are going to put it up, your corporates are not going to put in their check-ins or what they are wearing on their social media. But all your guests today, wedding guests who are coming, with all the, and Tejveen knows about it because she has the bridal pulse. She knows what they want to wear and how they want to twirl those lehengas. I think what is very important is what is Instagrammable, because that is really the way forward. There was a time when it was all about the traditional advertising budgets. True. It's today about social media. True. And about events which are curated by Shadi by Marriott, Timeless Weddings by Taj, among others, which Correct. Really offer that experience. Correct. And it was earlier all about that one-way communication, but today it's all about this. Yes. But I would like to ask you, Tejveen, talking about auspicious dates, has it changed from auspicious dates to auspicious weeks now?
It has.
Can the Pandit be manipulated a little more, to make it work?
I won't deny it has, okay? I mean, I won't say, okay, they would say, okay, why don't you do the wedding on this date, but your pre-wedding functions, can of course happen on the other dates. Then when we would say, okay, we're not getting, people are coming from all over, we're not getting the right thing. So then he would say, okay, get the 2 kundlis and I will try to do something. And he would say, okay, why don't you do it between these 2-3 hours? Maybe it will work. So we know there's a lot of things happening, and a lot of people have also come to a comfort zone because they realize on the auspicious dates, a lot of things are being not charged like 40% more, but maybe 50-60%. But if it's helping them to really reduce on an overall thing, getting the exact same thing, why not?
Absolutely.
So people who generally...
Clients are also very smarter. They also know that there are certain dates when it's probably, not only the hotel rooms, but even vendors.
Exactly.
And Anand would know that, how difficult it is to get some of the star vendors on some days, right? So
and it
all
also doesn't make sense to have a vendor doing 5 jobs. He's going to spoil 2 jobs for sure. You know, like, let's be very clear on it. Like, whichever is giving them the maximum revenue, the 3 top revenues, you know, out of the 5 things. And as a wedding planner, we do not suggest vendors who do more than 2 events on a day, because let's be very clear, it's the most special day of their life. Sure. And you know, it's not about a business, as he said, it's not transaction analysis, it's a very special day, which is not going to be repeated. Yeah. So auspicious dates have become flexible, I don't deny.
So therefore, we've spoken about what millennials want, we've spoken about the red carpet which hotels are doing, we're talking about how the tourism boards, every tourism board in the world is wooing the wedding planner and the wedding clients. Therefore, net, and Nikita, it all boils down to travel is also about weddings, right?
Absolutely.
Therefore, internationally, which are the locations which are doing very well, you know, when it comes to the Indian weddings of Marriott?
So we get a good pulse primarily because of our culinary expertise in India, right? So anytime there is an Indian wedding that's happening at an international destination, we always reached out, because today all our guests seek is authenticity. You know, we have very, very discerning guests who really know what they want. But yeah, like you rightly said, it's the Middle East market which has really gone diverse. Ras Al Khaimah, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Southeast Asia, of course, you know, Langkawi, Malaysia, Indonesia. So really more resorty destinations, Thailand. We still get a lot of requests. And interestingly, one in the very recent past was Australia, which was the first for us.
And this was a family from India?
Yes, where they reached out and they willingly covered the entire airfare and all of that with it.
And what about India, Anand? Which are the, you know, what are there? You know, we spoke about Mahabs, of course. We all know about Goa and Rajasthan, of course, during the, you know, the winter season. What about other destinations in India?
I think every region has its sort of accessible.
It also boils down to location,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
accessible yet, you know, a sort of a place where you can disappear with the family. Yes. And is also Instagrammable, like you said. You've got like the Naukuchiatals of the world, where a couple of it's like a lesser known hill station in North India, where everybody wants to do something different, right, in the wedding space. Even if 3-5 years back is when a Masuri became very, very popular. Suddenly there are these people who don't want to do a wedding which somebody in their network's done a year back, right? So then people keep looking at what's a different option out there. I think that still doesn't stop the Goas, the Rajasthans of the world and the Kerala's of the world to still drive upwards of 80% of the destination wedding market. These are still things which are, they're good to invest in, but they're relatively outliers, you can say.
Yeah. So there was a time when we all knew the famous Calcutta story that Thailand was more accessible from Calcutta. But we do know that the number of weddings maybe from Calcutta has gone down to Thailand, but Thailand is still doing well. Absolutely. So if there are Thailand families who are now considering maybe a Doha, because everything finally also boils down to direct flights. Right. So we do know that a lot of hotels and tourism boards who are aiming to woo these segment, if you don't have the direct flights or there are visa issues, there will always be a problem. But when you have the direct flights, and while there are a lot of families who may say, I don't want that, I don't want to go back there again. We do know how, locations like Courtyard, Rayong, Sheraton, Hua Hin, just continue, because much as families say we don't want to do something which has already been done. Weddings is also a time where a lot of them want the tried and tested, right? Which is why the Taj city hotels will always do well. Your Marriott hotels, which have been a part of the family tradition, like your, Juhu, which has been around for a long time, and hotels which have played host to many
Celebrity
weddings
as well, right? Yeah. That's big now. Yeah.
So it's also got a lot to do with reinventing yourself. So for example, Umaid Bhawan continues to be the #1 option in terms of large ticket weddings. And so even though there have been multiple celebrity weddings there is no reason why it should not continue, because the team over there constantly reinvents. And
but
coming back to that point,
but their pricing for the winter season is very different from the pricing in other months, right? So obviously the winter months is when they'll have the billionaires segment, those who come in the chartered flights, right?
That's a demand-supply command, really.
Even like in Udaipur, like a lot of times when we have a wedding coming up in April and May, we do suggest Udaipur because the prices have really come down. And honestly, having those sundowner events and everything, and being by the lake, the weather is so beautiful even in the evenings that you realize that almost your 50% of your price, is at least the room tariffs have come down. You've got that Udaipur tag of a wedding. So I just feel like in the lean time when there's an auspicious dates, they really have a very good catch to it, because you can suggest places and you can move around your events in a way that you still get your Udaipur tag, because otherwise doing a Udaipur wedding during December and Jan, they're like exorbitant at that point.
There was a time when the mother was the wedding planner. She continues to be a wedding planner, unless we see a big change maybe 10 years later, where you have more of working women who decide to give the full responsibility. So currently, if they are remote controlling Tejveen, they will hopefully 10 years later just say, listen, I'm going to come for one meeting and you take care of the rest.
We are happier with that.
Yeah. Is there a big difference that way when you talk of the NRI mothers and the mothers who are here in terms of...
I think NRI mothers are more closed. The Delhi mothers are more open because they're working and they're seen around. The NRI mothers have gone back from where they went and they are just following that. So that's what I would say.
They may give you more freedom, but the whole thing is they are still closed. That's what you're saying.
They're still closed in their mind for a lot of aspects.
Great. But they are today, you don't need to be a wedding planner alone to, to suggest options. You could be an aggregator like WedMeGood. You could be an event company who's also getting into weddings. You could be a decorator who's offering the wedding planner services. But now Vikram and Nikita, I have seen so many travel agents who are venturing into this space.
Yes.
And what is it that they're doing and where do they have an edge? I mean, this question can be for Nikita or Vikram. The travel agents who are now venturing into booking of rooms.
So yeah, definitely we are seeing an increase in that. It's still relatively a little more nascent from what we are seeing. They are tried and tested in terms, they know the industry, they know the business, they work closely with hotels. But whilst they do that, they're specialized only in one part of the business. We still do believe today the wedding business in India is so much about the food. The food reputation really carries through your decision-making process. We've really seen that's the make or break in many ways. So whilst, they've entered that space, it's work in progress. That's how we see it.
It's also all about the kind of alliances they put in place, because this whole wedding industry is all about collaboration. How does a travel agent collaborate with a decorator? How does a caterer who is not happy just getting the catering pie, and he has relationships with a lot of clients, how can he have a strategic alliance with a event company to offer the 360-degree services?
So you're very right when you say it's about collaboration. So to take on to her point, that's why it's at a very nascent stage at this point of time. So what really happens is their expertise is around logistics, and probably they also want to capitalize on their relationship with hotels because of the kind of volumes they produce for the hotels and get that little bit of a rate advantage. But that's where the buck really stops right now. It really still belongs to the hotel to command a certain kind of presence and also push back a little bit to say, this is my expertise because let's not forget, even for the travel agent at this point of time, he does fall back on the hotel for his own clients for a lot of services. He hasn't taken on to that services yet. So it's about identifying what is your USP and what you need to focus on versus what their USP is and that business really comes into place on destination weddings where there's a lot of logistics involved. It doesn't really have so much to do with city hotels, or it doesn't have to do with domicile city weddings, because then the logistics are manageable, much lesser, don't have so much of a planning that is required at this stage. So yes, travel agents do get into it, but I think it's very important for every hotel to identify which part to draw the line on and then turn around and say, okay, this is my expertise, that's why you've come to me, and then for the hotel to capitalize on that thought process also.
The very fact that there are so many influencers makes it quite difficult even for hotels to figure out, what to do, among other things, because there are travel agents, event managers, wedding planners, everybody who's involved with a wedding. But, internationally, we do know that a lot of hotels offer packages for weddings. So which means you could go to Ayana, Bali, and for a certain fee, you get a DJ, a photographer, basic decor, and a price for 20 people. And when it comes to the affluent Indians, packages will never work, right? But do you find that a lot of planners today are thinking of, because clients today are very clear, I want to spend 3 crores, I want to spend 1.5 crore, I want to spend 5 crore. And you tell me, And I think today what is really happening in Bombay, I do know one or two planners who again, where, how can there be a differentiation? See, again, the wedding planning it can be a very difficult business because a hotel is able to differentiate on its spaces, on its food. But every wedding planner, the proposal which a client gets, every client everyone who's been getting, a lot of people, especially the ultra HNI, not really the ultra HNI segment, the HNI segment has been telling me that the proposal of every wedding planner is just the same because he's saying stress-free wedding, A to Z, and good hospitality. But the planners today, and I'm sure many of you who are, running hotels, which have really doing more than 20 destination weddings in a year, really are aware of those 4 or 5 wedding planners, and of course I can't name them right now, who have really cracked how to give them as much value for a 3 crore wedding, for a 1.5 crore wedding, and for the 5 crore wedding. And that is really making a difference because whether the client is spending 5 crores or 50 lakh, they want value for money, right? Sure. And that is really, I think, as clients become more aware, they're really looking to not overspend and looking to get as much as they can for their spends.
So the fight really becomes who gets the larger chunk of the pie, me or the or the wedding planner, really. So I think, yeah, it's packaging. To answer your question again, hotels also do get into a package module where the event planner would probably come up to you and say, okay, I have a 5 crore pie for a hotel and this is what I'd like to do and these are my options. So that's where I would say, have been lucky because we have multiple options within the same city. Let's look at Jaipur for a case, an example, where we do have a Rambagh, but at the same time, we also have a Jai Mahal. In Jodhpur, for example, we do have an Umaid Bhavan, but we also have a Hari Mahal. So, it's about, like I said in the starting of the conversation, that it's all about customization and it's about understanding the requirement and fitting yourself in that requirement. Because at the end of the day, the client knows what he wants and he knows how much he wants to spend. How much of it can you really cater to? So whether it's got to do with a banquet hall wedding or it's got to do with a hotel wedding, that's where the whole planning comes into place and the connect comes into place.
I have a point to
interrupt you guys.
sorry.
We have a question for you.
One last question for Anand and then
Sure.
we'll move on.
Okay.
Sorry,
So just to kind of quickly add a thought to what Vikram said, I had a slightly different take to what you mentioned in terms of, who gets a larger share. For example, this particular conference has a segment which says how do hotels sort of coexist with OTAs, right? Which is a big contributor to the entire travel business now and is a significant collaboration which needs to be figured out. The wedding space, I would say, is fairly early in terms of the word you use, right? Influencers. Whether it's a wedding portal, whether it's a wedding planner, whether it's even an Instagram, you don't really know how much, who has contributed to that wedding coming towards you.
Yeah.
So I believe, like you yourself said, it's about controlling the experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you can control the experience, I think at this stage it's a little early to worry about, his share and our share. I think it's a segment which needs a lot of collaboration. Your brand also, does a lot of collaborations with.
Totally. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah,
It's all about collaborating together
Yeah.
and making it work for the benefit of both the
Yeah,
parties. I'm not
absolutely.
taking that away.
Yeah.
But what I'm really trying to say at this point of time is that when there's a fixed pie, one has to identify how that pie is really divided. And that's where your services that are being offered control your share of the pie.
Yeah, I
Really,
guess we're
that's-
specialists in our own ways, right?
Now for the
we all
most
have our own.
all important question finally, we can of course be talking about, as we've talked about, trust, loyalty, service, everything. But finally, what every hotel is attempting to understand better is what millennials want. And we'd love to have questions from you, from your perspective.
So one of my question is very practical and it's on a lighter note, very frankly, and it's directed more for Mr. Berry and Ms. Ramchandani. So I wanted to ask you, when we have weddings at 5-star hotels, there's always a tendency, not just at 5-star hotels, but all weddings, where there'll be the occasional drunk relative, there'll be a mama ji or a taya ji going crazy at these weddings, right? So where do hotels draw the line between, because in hotels there's an impression that everyone's too courteous, too polite to actually say anything. So where do hotels actually draw the line and break in and say, okay, this is not fine, you're going crazy? So
I guess they are facing it every day at the nightclub. It's
Yeah.
not just the wedding, right? If you go to the Taj Lands End, House of Nomads, I don't know how they handle the guests there. So it's, I think
What are you
wedding.
doing there till that late, huh?
His question in a nutshell is how drunk can you be?
Exactly. No, I
Well,
mean,
they are smart. I think they give the job to the wedding planner. They just tell the wedding planner to handle it.
no, but that's fair. We see that at a lot of our weddings. And I guess it's about being discerning, right? Knowing when to stop. And that's part of our business, right? That's core training in many ways for us. It's absolutely basic, knowing kind of, getting the right signals and signs and then kind of curtailing that and finding the very helpful wedding planner and saying, this Mama G needs to, hold it off.
She needs to change the flow.
Sorry, I have another question. So recently we have seen some big weddings happening in India, which have really taken weddings to the next level. Whether it were the two Ambani weddings or Deepika Padukone's wedding, where they were doing 2 or 3 or 7 functions. Actually, I think it was a week-long function. The honest truth remains that everybody does not have the capital to invest a 4 crore or a 2 crore in a wedding. And I think as millennials, more than spending that much on a wedding, I think the trend is shifting towards, keeping the wedding smaller, going on a lavish holiday instead. So do you see that as a threat, or is there a way that you're, trying to work around it and come up with something which does not need to be a 4 crore wedding, but will still give the same experience?
Basically, while these 4 crore and 2 crore and 1 crore weddings may be a target audience for the 5-star hotels, there are a lot of the millennials who are just seeking inspiration. For example, I'll tell you, like in Tamil Nadu, maybe 4 or 5 years back, they were just having the traditional functions. Now all of them have a mehendi. Now that doesn't mean they go to a 5-star hotel to host a mehendi. They could be having a mehendi at home. So there's a lot of inspiration. Today we do know a lot of brides who don't believe in spending lakhs on a lehenga. So therefore there's a startup called Flyrobe, where we do, though a lot of people will not say that they are renting from there, but we do know a lot of them, and Anand would also know where they are renting from these places like Flyrobe. So one is, of course, the clientele of hotels, which is typically 1 CR plus, and 1 CR maybe even very less for a Umaid Bhavan or a Rambagh, right? But there are a lot of others. For every one family, every one high-profile wedding, there are 100 others who are having what is called a function, which is just a reflection of their personality and style. So they could be having a very traditional wedding in their hometown, and they could go off to Goa with 10 of their friends to have a very cool celebration.
And also even the pre-wedding shoots and engagements have really taken, because they know whether the number game is going very large in their hometown, but they don't mind taking 100 people just to a nice boutique resort, where they know that they don't want to spend on that 700 people so much, but on their 100 main people, or have a pre-wedding shoot done there, even between the families and immediate families. So yes, there has been a shift, but I would still say that there'll be one big function which will continue to happen because of the generations being involved at a wedding.
And if it's one of those intimate celebrations, the Western concepts really work well for the hotels because the guests pay for the rooms.
Yeah.
So either way, it's good news for the hotels.
I think we're running short on time also. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have time for a Q&A, or we're running short of time? Okay, great. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.